My Hero Academia has a distinct writing style compared to most anime even in the same demographic. It cuts out the seemingly useless, bland moments that build up characters, and it replaces these boring, necessary seeming scenes with physical metaphors that subconsciously do the same exact job, just without taking any excess time. This is one of the strongest suits in the writing of My Hero Academia, and I'm working on an entire video pointing out the stories behind the details of the universe just because I love this writing style so much, and it goes largely unnoticed by a simple one-time watch-through. Feel free to scribble if you're interested, but my last My Hero Academia video was focused on All Might. More precisely, it was why All Might's an overpowered badass character done right, and how it's not because of his insane brute strength, but because of his perspective, which is unimportant to this topic, and because of his physical metaphor, which is slightly slaughtered by MatPat's film theory. That metaphor is while he's in Tall Might form, he's living for his image within the minds of the general populace, and in his Small Might form, he's living as himself, where his smile is genuinely from happiness rather than Tall Might just spreading hope. Small Might is where he can display dismay, whereas that very emotion is the antithesis of Tall Might's integral being. Small Might metaphorically is All Might's true self, while Tall Might is people's perception of him. And again, MHA doesn't need to take the time to develop all this into its narrative because it exists within the mindset of every viewer, whether they brought attention to it or not. Now, to dig deeper into this metaphoric storytelling and express why the details matter to make All Might who he is, and why the stupid little things are so integral to the story, we have to talk about today why film theory just can't be right. Before I watch an episode of usually game theory, to be honest, because I don't usually like film theory as much, I know one of two things are gonna happen. Like every time, it's one of these two things, and that's the answer to MatPat's reputation fluctuation. For those of you who don't know, MatPat is actually an android. Wait, oh shit, sorry, that's my Mark Zuckerberg script. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, a lot of people love game theory, and a lot of people also seem to hate it, and this is basically why. In a nutshell, some game theories blow my freaking mind, and some are rather meh. Either I disagree with them, like this one, they aren't even really theories like, oh my god, Mario Kart is actually dangerous, the kids in the carts can die because they're going that fast, that's crazy. Yes, that was a full game theory. Or, some of these game theories can be summed up in like 30 seconds, which I will get to in my honest descriptions of every game theory in the last year. Yeah, it's coming. But now, to sum up his All Might theory in a couple of seconds, and please correct me in the comments if I miss anything, this is not meant to be offensive towards MatPat in any way. One for All doesn't possess the power to go from Small Might to Tall Might. Deku can't expand his muscles. It doesn't say anything about it in the All for One manual, so obviously this was a quirk All Might possessed before he got One for All, and he lied to Deku when he said he was quirkless as a kid. Yeah, that's the entire 15-minute long film theory. And again, sometimes he blows me away. Sometimes I disagree and just shut up, and sometimes he kills what I like, so retaliation is required. Even though, as a person, I really like MatPat, and his concession speech by VidCon was a really great and powerful speech, on the surface, this seems like a pretty harmless-seeming theory. It doesn't change much of the story. It's not a massive twist by any stretch of the imagination, and it answers what seems to be a plot hole. So despite all the physical metaphors that I love more than I love watching Naruto lose to ninja ostriches, deep metaphoric writing can't debunk physical plot holes in the superficial story. I know that. So first, let's stopper the hole so we don't need to 100% rely on the theory that All Might had a quirk before One for All. That way, we can salvage the metaphoric value behind the narrative, as I will explain momentarily. When Mr. Might got injured by Poison Guy before the series even started, it began limiting his strength, and he could therefore only utilize All for One for smaller increments of time, which sucks, by the way. Just getting that across here. And also, it began limiting somehow his Tall Might form. So, I do believe it is possible that going from Small Might to Tall Might is interwoven with One for All, because MatPat is coming from the perspective that before One for All Might's natural form was Small Might. But perhaps his natural, healthy physical form before he got injured by Poison Dude was Tall Might. Whatever this poison is, it's slowly eating away at him, and it's making him look like a sickly, anorexic Super Saiyan. One for All, as we know, for a quirkless user at least, brings their physical might to plus ultra, peak physique, and beyond. So, while he's slightly tapping into One for All, it can make his physical form revert to what it was before the poison made him look like a deflated balloon, bringing his physical form to its natural max, and his natural form is Tall Might, not Small Might. Unfortunately, the time he can tap into One for All is diminishing, and then he starts coughing out his intestines. Yeah, obviously, this is speculation, because this is not specifically stated in the anime, but it is kind of alluded to in the first 2 episodes especially, that his Small Might form is a direct correlation to getting poisoned, and he can only maintain Tall Might via the power of One for All. This is a theory, a film theory, not an absolute proof. This way, All Might doesn't lie to Deku about being quirkless, which the anime pretty much made clear to be the truth, not a lie. And this way, no one's bothering my metaphors. If you notice, I did not clickbait title this video MatPat Debunked with like 16 X's, circles, and arrows all over the thumbnail, because I'm open to all theories, unless they're blatantly wrong. This is not blatantly wrong, and theories are a great source of conversation on a topic that I love to discuss. This, though, is enough of a reasoning to say that MatPat's theory isn't the only way out of this plot hole he mentioned, and sidebar, why do theorists think that every plot hole is really intentional and a secret way to turn the whole story on its head, just to get this plot point to click? But that's a topic for another video, just something that always bothers me with theories, especially on YouTube. But this is why Matt's theory really matters as far as the greater metaphoric tale, and truly why I believe it's incorrect. Let's first take a look at the point of contention when All Might supposedly lies to Deku. That's when Deku just lost to Todoroki, and All Might explains to the kid exactly what One for All does. Well, he explains it basically without its history, and he focuses on the stockpile ability. It's the ultimate enhancement to the physical state of the wielder. So, if Todoroki, for example, would have One for All, and this is the example that Mr. Might gives himself, it would target Shoto's quirk as well, and make it unstoppable. Infinitely faster and more powerful, hotter fire and colder ice attacks. If it enhanced a normal flick to the point that the force can generate a typhoon, Todoroki would have become the level of Yamamoto's Bankai and Rukia's Bankai combined. Anything within his massive range would be instantly disintegrated into ash or completely flash frozen into oblivion. Side note again, this is another proof against MatPat, by the way, because if All Might had a quirk before that can, let's say, make his muscles expand, One for All would have enhanced the crap out of that power, but it doesn't enhance that power. It affects Mr. Might, the same way it affects Deku, being brute physical ability. Sorry, bruh. Moving on. And this is an extremely important point, yet unfortunately glossed over as far as the whole freaking MHA story, because All Might still chose Deku. That's the core of the narrative here. And if you think about it, giving this power to someone else, like Todoroki or anyone with any quirk, who aside from being physically the same as Deku before One for All, and would have the full power of All Might, at least when they figure out how to control One for All, they will also possess a supercharged quirk. But no, All Might still chose little Deku. Now, before we worry about why he made that decision, and before we ask if All Might was negligent as the world's protractor, what? Oh god, fucking spell check. As the world's protector. Pay attention to how the timing of this conversation answers both of those questions, and that's exactly what I mean by MHA talks and metaphors to subconsciously answer questions without needing extra conversations, without needing inner monologues, and without needing sideline characters to explain the obvious shiz that's going on screen. Something that I like to call brachitosis.
They're both water types, and Floatzel's evolved from Weasel. Ash is at a disadvantage if Weasel stays in.
No shit, Sherlock!
This is why timing is storytelling rather than just a world mechanic. Deku learns that One for All isn't just a physical strength quirk, but an augmentation ability as he loses to Todoroki, a physically better candidate to inherit All Might's power. But you see, he's coming off not from a fight that he was completely overpowered, but a fight that he at least initially threw for the sake of another. To understand his internal struggle throughout that fight, at least until Todoroki turned off his daddy issues, All Might told Deku before the tournament, "Midoriya Shonin, you have to win. It doesn't matter if you're a hero to save lives as opposed to for reputation," as his interaction with Stain taught us. You need a reputation to become the symbol of peace for the world. I don't know what the hell accent I just gave him, but moving on. Deku was in it to win it, and every round of the tournament, be it the race, the cavalry battle, or his fight against Shinso, especially his fight against Shinso, he broke past his limits to push forward, and he let all that slip away to save someone from despair. Someone that didn't even like him. His burning desire to to win, or for anything personal really, represents his inner small might and his ability to push that to the side for the good of another and for the good of the outside world. And for the good of the world's perception of Deku is his inner tall might. This is a recurring theme for both All Might and Deku. That's what makes both of them perfect candidates for One for All. In fact, that's when All Might decided that Deku should be the one to inherit One for All. Bakugo gets a one-way ticket to tentacle hentai. So the small might in Deku says, "Fly, you fools." And then Tall Might activates, and before you know it, Deku's rushing into the tentacle hentai. And trust me, you don't want to look that up, fanbase, because unfortunately, the fan interpretations of that scene exist in that fashion. So that's what Tall Might and Small Might really mean, and how they relate to One for All. I did an entire video on what society means and what being quirkless philosophically represents in MHA a while ago, and I will link that video at the end of this one and in the description, but that's more of a tangent to this point than actually relating to what Small Might and Tall Might mean. But it does express why being quirkless specifically is an important characteristic to inherit One for All. So if you want to tackle the situation from that angle, feel free to check out that video. But the point is, I can come from many angles here. I can be picking at the various intricacies of the plot because all these little details fit together as far as the subconscious narrative of Deku being quirkless just like a young All Might. So that's not a proof that All Might was quirkless before One for All, but him being quirkless gives the narrative an entire different and far superior vantage point than if All Might would have lied to Deku and actually had a quirk. So yes, I think Matt's incorrect for that reason. His theory's arguably debunked because the nature of One for All would have enhanced All Might's supposed quirk, and there's another way to answer the question that Matt posed altogether that brought this theory to existence. If you assume Tall Might was his base form and he got weakened rather than Small Might being his base form and then expanded, welp, I don't usually do debunk style videos because I'm not particularly a theorist and I'm not particularly a power scaler, but I love delving into the psychology, ideology, and philosophy of anime. So if you're interested in future analyses of that nature, feel free to subscribble and leave a like if you enjoyed. The OP analysis of All Might and the philosophy of MHA Society are linked in the description and at the end of the video. Thanks to the fan base for watching, and huge thanks for supporting me on Patreon that I just started. Link in the description next to my merch. Thanks to the swag caggers, Colton Scott, you, and an anonymous member. Thank you to the Lord Tweeger Galactic, and thanks to the God Usopp tier, Ezedric and JD Fincher. Really means a lot. Whoever donates any amount has access to my Discord, and note, I also do meme satire content as an odd mix to the in-depth analyses. You're all invited to partake, of course. I love every single one of you, and remember to stay weird, fam.